This video is to show you how to target your avatar as the target for your camera. This is the brand new, the mocap sort of starter kit that you can download. The first thing I'm going to do here is go to the package manager, choose Unity Registry, and add the Cinemachine package. We looked at this in the last class. If you're working from this package, one of the things that you may notice is that here in the timeline, there already is a Cinemachine track, but it's got a warning symbol next to it. So the reason that it's that way is because when you first install this mocap starter kit, it previously had the Cinemachine in it, but Cinemachine wasn't packaged with this package. So it knows that Cinemachine brain had already been attached to the camera, but because it didn't exist, because the Cinemachine package wasn't added, that's why it was yellow. So you'll notice once I've added the Cinemachine package to the scene, it recognized that it was previously attached to this camera and showed up. So for example, if I select my camera, now I get the little Cinemachine icon, and if I scroll down here, the Cinemachine brain is there. If you're starting from scratch, which I don't really recommend, you need to make a camera, right? Go get the Cinemachine package like I did. Use add component on the camera to go find the Cinemachine brain, right? And then once that was attached, you could go ahead and drop and drag this to create a new camera track. I already have one, but it would look like this, and you'd add a Cinemachine track. All right, so if you're working with the starter kit, it should all reconnect. And you'll notice you already have a clip here, and already plugged into that clip is the virtual camera that we had, that this scene came with. If you were starting from scratch, what you would do is actually right click in here and create a Cinemachine shot. It's giving me a warning because there's no virtual camera attached to it. And then you can click on it, and if you go over here to the inspector with this shot selected, you can either drop and drag in an existing virtual camera, or you could create a new one. So if you're creating a brand new one, it would probably look like this. All right, so now my camera is tied to this virtual camera right here. And if I were to move it around, my view would change. So my real camera, my main camera, is now essentially being forced to follow this. Not very good. All right, so I'm going to rotate it back so I can see what the heck is going on. So now if I want to be able to use the look at feature of the virtual camera, and just for simplicity's sake, I'm going to take my new virtual camera and drag it up here by my camera just so I can see it. Select my timeline. And then here in the upper right corner of the timeline, I'm going to lock this so it stays open. Okay. So then what I want to do is tell my virtual camera to look at my avatar. And what I want to do is you want to figure out which bone on the avatar you want to look at. If I go to, let's say, Michelle, and I open up the Michelle one, this object here, the CH03, is the mesh, and then you'll notice that there's an item here, it says hips, and with an arrow, and that means the rest of the bones are under here. So we could take our virtual camera and move this out a little bit so you can see. And here we have the look at field in the virtual camera. I can take the hips, drop it in there, and then don't forget down here you need to go to aim in the virtual camera and say composer. And now I'm looking at the Michelle hip, and as I move Michelle around, right, then you could use different bones. So you could go farther in. Here's her spine 1, spine 2, neck, for example. So if we wanted to look higher, I can't really tell because our camera's so far away. But if I take the virtual camera and I move it in closer, you can see that's pretty good framing. But if you wanted it, for example, to be the neck, you would just keep opening up these hierarchies until you found the neck or whichever bone you were interested in, and then you could click and drag that into there. You'll notice my focus now changes and I'm pointing higher at the character. That may be the way that you want it. So for each of these characters, it could be a little different. For Recode, it's the root is the hip. And again, you'd have to kind of go in to find the spine right? So most of them have a name that's at least reasonable. The root's the one that seems a little bit confusing, but often that refers to the hip. The alien apparently is missing the content. For Manny, it's the hips. So most of these other ones that come from the Mixamo website are pretty consistent. They have the hips on them, and I think almost all of them, except probably the Recode one, have come from there. So it should be pretty easy for you to find that bone that you want to put that on. All right, and then the other thing that you'll want to do if you're going to decide to point your camera at your avatar is make sure you set yourself up so that you can actually move your camera around and animate it. Don't forget that because we're using Cinemachine, we're not going to move the main camera, we're going to move the virtual camera. This clip forces the main camera to follow the virtual camera. So I would take my virtual camera, drag it over here and make an animation track. And then I could turn on my record button, it's flashing, and then I could start moving that camera around, move ahead in time, move the camera to a different spot, right? When I click and drag, you'll see that that goes. And then once you put motion in there, then your camera would be looking at Michelle, at the bone that you've decided, and then it would also be moving into the cuboids. Okay, so that's how you have your camera target an avatar.